Today we're gonna talk about idols.
Idols.
Slapping idols.
MashaAllah.
But what kind of idols? We're not talking about your Drake and Rihanna here, so don't worry. We're talking about physical idols.
Yeah.
We got some videos to react to.
Let's check it out.
Yeah, let's do it. I think it's a trend happening. So this is like some kids here. Hold on, watch.
These champions of Tawheed.
Oh.
What?
All right, hold on.
What?
I was just watching them smack that.
Okay.
So they're reciting Quran.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it looks like the kids are having a bit of a laugh.
These are the ayat of Ibrahim.
Yeah,
alayhi salam. So it's like when he actually slapped them, right, with the right hand.
And you're saying it's a trend?
It's a trend. Like, I mean, these kids are having fun.
Yeah.
I watched it already. I was dying, but like it was it's very funny when he slapped. They're laughing. They're like they're like mocking the idol and then smacking. But here's another one.
Yeah, this
guy looks more serious.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
And I mean, like,
Yeah,
you know what that reminds me of? Like, it seems to me that like many Muslims, and this is in the Salafi movement, but it's also just in a general understanding of Islam or the Muslimin. It's like when we think about shirk, we think about rocks like that.
Yeah, idols, yeah.
And when we think about confronting shirk, we think about what was the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, what was the story of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, with respect to the societies that they had and the fact that those societies worshipped idols, right? But you know, like, do our societies really worship idols today? Like, how relevant is this like activity today? I mean, it's not threatening to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the kids, but this guy's like very serious about it. It's like it looks like he's putting it on more for the audience, for his. Does he even have a lot of following?
Yeah,
4K.
I mean, like, what this is really about is like the feeling that I get, or like if I'm gonna put myself in his shoes, it's like, this is us, this is the Muslimin, this is our history. We smash the idols, right? There's this kind of imagination that people have that like Islam won, the Muslimin won, and shirk was demolished, right? And isn't that true?
That's
like,
not true.
Well, I mean, like, from one perspective, it was true, right? That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he removed the idols from the Kaaba and he converted Qurashi society to Islam, and there was Tawheed, and the Jazirat al-Arab became, you know, a land of Tawheed, and then that spread, and that's true, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, like, shirk is something that is kind of formless. It can take different forms. What we see throughout history and what we're seeing until now, till in the modern day, is that evil has a kind of cycle to it. You know, like a vaccine or like a disease. A disease comes, it makes you sick, and your immune system fights it off, and then your immune system can now recognize the disease, right?
But the virus needs to change now.
Yeah, the virus needs to mutate.
Yeah.
So,
Shaitan's working overtime.
When I see people like slapping the idol in the face, or like when their imagination, like, forget just the videos. What the videos are symbolic of is that the imagination of the regular Muslim, when it comes to shirk, is idols, stone idols. That's what it is. Shirk equals stone idols. And if I tell you, yani, Islam is against shirk, you think of Buddha, you think of Trinity, you think of grave worshipping, you think of amulets, you think of these kinds of old superstitions of the past. But even the kuffar don't believe these anymore, bro. Yeah, you speak to the post-enlightenment modernist liberals, they're materialist, they're scientific rationalists. They're more firm in their kufr against these things than you are. So,
like, it's clear now.
Though that evil, or like that shirk, is not the shirk that like the kufr society by and large takes or
it's our generation too. Like, I mean, we're people of intellect, of reason, you know, so definitely, like, it's become like, it's not as popular as it used to be, you know. But so you're basically saying, so that's not shirk, so then what would be?
No,
so
like
other idols, like, you're talking about
like the shirk of today. Like, okay, so we have to understand, like, what is shirk.
Yeah.
And if I ask you, like, okay, define shirk, how would you define it?
Shirk would be to associate others to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And that's when I ask students to answer, like, what is shirk, they always say that. And it's not wrong. Like what you just said, shirk, associating partners or associating people to have rights of Allah that shouldn't have the
Yeah.
rights that are exclusive to Allah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Then I asked them to give me examples. Okay, that's the textbook definition. Who can argue with the textbook definition? Give me some examples. They'll give me the usual suspects.
Yeah.
Stone idols, graves, amulets, and so on. But nobody can actually name the more relevant entities that we today afford the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon.
Such as?
Such as parliaments, human beings who legislate from their own minds rather than taking the legislation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as political philosophers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The Adam Smiths and the Karl Marxes, those people who, we take as reference points. In America, you see people who say like, when they legislate, what do they say? The founding fathers said this and the founding fathers said that, right?
Yeah.
And where did the founding fathers get their ideas from? Were they prophets? No, right?
Bro, you know what's crazy?
What?
One of my boys traveled to America. I traveled a little bit too, but
Yeah.
he said he went somewhere. I don't know exactly where. We were talking about like the difference between Canada and the US in terms of like temperament, in terms of like, Canadians are more passive.
Yeah.
The US is a lot more proud of being American.
Yeah.
And the other thing he was saying is, bro, he's like, the way these guys worship George Washington, it's at the same level, if not more than Jesus.
Oh,
And I was like, what? So I don't know, like Americans can confirm this, but he was saying like, he went somewhere and he was looking up, there was like some sort of statue and he looks at it and it's kind of like Jesus, like it was like a statue of George Washington with his hands like this or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was something of that nature.
they have all kinds of those. They have the Mount Rushmore with the heads of the presidents.
Yeah. They're
They
very
have-
proud of it.
Yeah.
They're very proud of it.
Oh, yes, like the Constitution, the founding fathers. Remember, like one of the big differences between Canada and the United States was from the beginning an ideological state.
Yes.
Like it was founded based, and there's a great book called by Bernard Bailyn called The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution. And in it, he speaks about how like there were these French Enlightenment values like the divine rights of man, democracy, liberalism, which these guys who had like spent some time in France, they came back to the US, these colonizers, the colonists, like the 13 colonies.
Yeah.
And they started spreading these ideas and it became a revolution. And
The
and it was a
brotherhood and the sisterhood. I remember
exactly,
reading about it.
of
Yeah,
liberty and so on.
Yeah.
So they established this new khilafah upon minhaj George Washington, or not even George Washington wasn't like the thought leader. The thought leader was like John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin,
Yeah.
right? And then they had their like source of legislation, which is the Constitution, the Bill of Rights,
To
right?
liberate themselves from the British and gain that independence.
But it's not just about independence. It was about like independence plus a specific viewpoint about life, right? So they had like principles about life, like human beings should have the freedom to do this. Human beings have the right to this, and they should have the responsibility of that. And like they basically laid out their
they had yaqeen in their constitution.
and their this is basically their nas, their text,
Yeah.
right? And they refer back to it, just as today, a jurist in Islam, if he wants to interpret law from, where's he interpreting the law from?
Quran and Sunnah.
Quran and Sunnah.
Yeah.
Today, they will interpret and legislate from, we don't do the legislation part, but they'll interpret and legislate from the Constitution. So they'll always say, okay, does this contradict the Constitution? Is this inconsistent with the Constitution? Is this what the Founding Fathers intended?
Yeah.
This is the shirk that we're talking about, okay?
I'm very inspired by how strong their faith is and how they hold on to their principles and values. To the extent that I saw a video of a lady who was asked if Jesus was an immigrant, would you let him into the country? And she goes, yeah, if he has his papers and everything. It was like, I hope we can show it, bro. It was so funny.
Oh my God.
So he's like, exactly. If he comes in through the by following the law, right?
Yeah.
And so they stick by their principles, even to the extent of Jesus not having the excuse of getting into
this is called they call this the American civic religion. In the essence that like this is their worldview, like it has to do with these founding fathers, this constitution, this ideology. And yeah, I am inspired by it too, because like we have a nation with a constitution, with a founding father, right? Don't we? Our founding father, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is our founding father, the founding father of our nation. And then you can have, if you want to say the founding fathers, him and the sabiqun of the Sahaba, right?
But
Like those are the people who founded our nation.
but I don't feel like it's befitting to even compare them
But
because
forget even comparing them. Like
for the
role-
analogy you're saying.
But no, my point is the role the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba play for us should be more.
Oh yes, like we look
Should
up to
be
them. Like
more
these
than
guys
the-
were the starters, the you know
the initiators.
Yes, yes,
It
yes.
should be more than the role that the George Washingtons and Jeffersons play for the Americans, but it's not.
Yeah.
For them, they're the source of law.
Hmm.
These people are like their vision for society, their vision for politics, their vision for, relationships between people. That is what the courts go back to. That's what the Supreme Court of the United States,
Hmm.
that's like they study for like 10 years in Yale so that they can understand what did these founding fathers intend. And they can legislate on that basis.
I'll tell you what the issue is actually. The issue is, see, when you were saying that, my biggest problem with listening to that is that it felt uncomfortable because founding fathers are those who maybe, came up with the ideas.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you come up with the ideas and the ideas are revolutionary from your perspective, you become so, like, you venerate these people now. Now you're like looking up to them. You're like, these guys, they were they were change makers. Yeah, they were change makers. And it stemmed from their ideas. So you look up to them. On the other hand, the Prophet ﷺ, it wasn't his ideas.
Yeah. That's it. So that's like what the unique difference. That's
That's what I'm
really
trying to
the
say.
unique difference,
I'm
which is
trying-
that.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't that even more of that respect. But I get what you're saying. It is divine revelation, and that's what makes our system unique.
Yeah,
And that's actually why I'm saying that these founding fathers of ours in the Islamic history, for us to take them at an even higher level of reference point, because to take when we say we obey Allah and His Messenger, well, we obey the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam because he represents the wahy, right? So that distinction should be clear to people. But I get what you're saying.
But no,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because what I'm trying to say is, I think the issue with us is we understand that the source is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
And that the Prophet is just a messenger. So because it's not the Prophet that came up with these ideas and that we look up to. See, the problem is when people start to venerate these messengers and prophets, like Jesus, they took him from a prophet to a God. All these other Buddha, Judah, whatever. What happens is they attribute so much to the individual instead of the source, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For us, we might be attributing what comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to him, but now we look at the Prophet ﷺ as just like the person who implemented it in this very romantic and angel-like way. Like, it means like it's not achievable, or it's not like reachable for us.
Achievable and reachable is something else. But even though the ideology of Islam is not something that the Prophet ﷺ invented, of course, لا ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى, right? It's wahi. That doesn't subtract even a little bit from the veneration that we have for the Prophet ﷺ, his status, his rank among the believers, the salawats we give him. Like, I don't think this is a problem that we have, that we over venerate the Prophet ﷺ.
No, I'm not saying we over.
Yeah.
I think we under.
We under.
Not that we under. Well, yeah, maybe that's what I'm saying. Because what I'm trying to say is the respect is there. The Prophet's sacrifice, we couldn't even imagine the level of sacrifice. ﷺ.
But I'm
The
saying
Sahaba sacrificed.
There's nothing about the fact that just because the foundation, the legislation, this is wahi. At the same time, absolutely, the Prophet ﷺ is our mawla. He is our leader. He is our reference point, right? He is that like ultimate human being that we follow to this day, right? We should think of like he is our master. There's no problem with saying that, right? But not to take it to the extent, of course, which I don't know if that people do, that you basically start to like worship him, or that you understand these things understand the wahi to be his ideas. It's not his ideas, but he was the only one who could have carried those ideas in the way that he did at that time. You know what I'm saying?
But it's hard, like what you just said. Okay, so the founding fathers started this movement, this revolution that liberated America and Americans forever. That's why even till now, there are people that are that weren't there at the time, but that have a lot of reverence they show reverence to these figures
Yeah.
because they liberated them from the British and they have their own independence and their own ideas of freedom, equality, and all of these, these slogans. You're saying for us, we should be even more grateful and look up even more to the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahabas because they liberated us from the darkness and the injustice of the many adyan, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is it's hard for us to do that now because we're not seeing the effect of that liberation.
Oh, absolutely.
We are back to being subjugated.
Exactly.
But we're not seeing it. So we got people like, may Allah guide them, we got people slapping idols and feeling proud of it. What are you proud of? Our ummah's being stepped all over. Our ummah's being destroyed.
It reminds me of like going to a battlefield which like you already won. And there's nothing wrong with like feeling proud about what your ancestors accomplished. And we should be. That's why we read the Quran. We read the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. We read the story of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the other prophets. And we feel proud of what they did and like their success with their people and what they were able to do with their people and their bravery and their ferocity for the deen, right? However, for us to just like right here in the here and now, just content ourselves with being like, okay, our heroes did this and our heroes did that, without any understanding of how that relates to the problem at hand, the battlefield today. You should remember the battlefield of yesterday to inspire you to fight in the battlefield of today. But if you just that's all what you do, it's like, yeah, you revisit your old, hunting grounds and you look at what your ancestors accomplished and you basically think that, okay, the battle's therefore won. The battle is won, forgetting that there is a big ideological battle today.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, many Muslims, they have this attitude that like Islam is mission accomplished. After the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, they got rid of the idols in the Kaaba and the people became Muslim and everything. Mission accomplished, bro. Islam's 2 billion people. You look at the Kaaba today and like, okay, you have all the Muslims doing tawaf, there's the Hajj, and we're all Muslim and we're all praying. Now it's just like keep your prayers, keep your fasting, keep your zakat, and the work of the prophets is over. Because khalas, the Prophet ﷺ was the last prophet. This is like there's a few fulcrum points where you can say the Muslims have fundamentally misunderstood Islam, and this is one of them. Just because there's no more prophets doesn't mean that the work of the prophets ever ends. Especially when the work of the prophets, which was to establish Islam, an aqimuddin, has been now disestablished. When we don't have Islamic law, when we don't have the system enforcing the sovereignty of Allah, which is what Tawheed is, bro. What's Tawheed? It's like, okay, shirk, okay, slap the idol, fine. But how about basically when other people put themselves as authorities and sovereigns besides Allah and the people at large,
obeying,
even in the Muslim countries, especially in the Muslim countries, you could say, are putting sovereigns besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have shirk. Bro, shirk is everywhere. If you're anti-shirk, go fight the real shirk. Go speak out against the real shirk. That's what I mean by fight. Like speak out against it. Instead of slapping the idol, okay. If it makes you feel good, I guess.
Yeah. Like when the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that if you see a munkar, to change it with your hand.
Yeah.
If you see an evil, you should change it with your hand. And if you cannot change it with your hand, you speak about it. Right? You be vocal about it. You change it with your voice. And if you can't do that, then at the very least, you hate it in your heart. That is the least.
The weakest of iman.
The weakest of iman, exactly. But that should lead you, the hatred in your heart should lead you to at some point speak and then at some point be able to change it with your hand. But you have to work towards it. And that's the problem, subhanAllah, that I see. Like when I see this stuff, I honestly think it's stupidity.
Yeah.
Like look at how it makes us look. Imagine like freaking, those jokes, those memes when they're like, they show like kids, okay, from like ghetto neighborhoods. That are like, my idol is, and then they'll say some rapper or something. And then they'll show like right after that and they'll say like the CIA or the FBI right now, and they're all celebrating in their thing. Everyone's like jumping up and down behind the screens, like, yeah, we did it, because that's what they want. So even when we look at this, like for me, it's embarrassing. It's stupidity. Your brothers and sisters are dying, being imprisoned, tortured. Your mother is being raped. Your mother's being raped, and you're sitting there like, I'm slapping the idol. So proud. Bro, like think a little bit.
And it's not just like the one video of a guy slapping an idol. It's really like what we're talking about here is like what mindset this is representing in the ummah. That's the real key.
Bro, like
right?
we didn't even
the mindset that what is that mindset, right? The work of Islam is over and it had to do with these stone idols.
Yeah.
Not understanding the comprehensiveness of what shirk means today.